As Real as It Gets, Episode 3. A recap on 1 and 2, and a little bit of disclaimers. First song here, third song on Soul Salvation, My Vulnerable Soul. I'll tell you a little story about it afterwards. My Vulnerable Soul. So, in the first episode, I played Dark Night of My Soul. In the second episode, I played Awakening. And this song here is My Vulnerable Soul. The first episode is about stripping, the first song is about stripping away the ego and getting to the truth so I could have a true spiritual awakening and allow the Spirit of God to heal me and to start to have a healthier relationship with myself and with God. Again, this is a spiritual journey, not a religious journey. I'm not a clergyman, I'm not a priest, I'm not ordained, I'm not a licensed therapist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. So I won't be giving any legal advice. I won't be giving any medical advice. I won't be giving any religious advice. I'm going to share my personal life experiences. And I'll have to tread lightly at times, because some might take it as me maybe giving advice or preaching, and I'm not going to be giving advice or preaching. Again, this is sharing my personal life experience, my truth, my reality. So I talked about 4 paradoxes in the first video, and the 4 paradoxes were that I had to suffer to get well, and this was my reality. It was an absolute paradox. I suffered through my life to a place so much that I suffered so much and tried to control the outcomes of things, or tried to control my relationship. I tried anything I could to try to fit in and to try to feel comfortable in my environments. I tried everything I could to not drink and use drugs, and I could not do that. And so I suffered, and then I suffered even worse because I fell into drug and alcohol use and abuse, until I came to a place in my life where I was so beaten and so exhausted. My only options were to end my life, and I was not willing to do that. Keep doing what I was doing until the bitter end, and I wasn't willing to do that anymore, or try something new. And what was suggested was that I'd be willing to believe that there might be a power greater than myself that could restore my sanity, if and only if I was willing to do certain things. So when I had suffered badly enough, I reached a place where I was able to surrender to win. So I had to suffer in order to get well. These are paradoxes. Suffered in order to get well, but in order to get well, I had to surrender. And once I had surrendered and asked for help, all those old ideas and misconceptions and the false narrative about myself died. I had to die in order to live. And now here I am. So those are 3 paradoxes. I suffered to get well. I had to surrender to win. I had to die to live. And now I'm giving away what I've learned in order to keep it. And what that means is that while I'm here sharing about myself, or while I'm working with somebody else, whether it's about self-evaluation and exploration and discovery to get all the information they need so they can make an educated decision about how to move forward in their life, I have to say I'm not feeling real well today. I did so much yesterday. I was so accomplished, and I put out that first video yesterday finally after months and months, and I put out the second video this morning, and here's the third video, but I had to give it away to keep it. Oh, this is it. So while I'm doing this, I'm distracted from the things in life that I don't have control over. So I'm focused. I shift my focus to something that actually distracts my mind from I don't have enough money. It distracts my mind from I don't have a relationship, or I don't have, my car is broke down, or whatever it may be. A family member is sick and dying. These things can really stifle a person, especially if they've been through an overabundance of trauma in life. So I learned a long time ago that the best thing I could do for myself was to find healthy distractions. And for many years, I went to several AA meetings and NA meetings a week, and I got involved in that community. working with other newcomers that are trying to get clean and sober, going and doing sober events. I literally had to completely change everything about my life in order to um, transform my life. I had to be open minded to new ideas and trying things that prior to that I said didn't work. I'm going to quote the big book. I love this. So, I experienced so much early childhood trauma. And then once I was old enough to start having full conversations with people, I was probably about 5 years old. On a Sunday morning, I was at a friend's house, had spent the night, and they were going to go to church, so they sent me home. My friend asked if I went to church, and I said no. And he said, "Oh, you're going to go to hell. God's going to punish you." And well, that went into the unconsciousness. That joined that trauma piece, because what the unconsciousness now said understood was that all that trauma that I experienced was because I wasn't worthy of God's love. That started a false unconscious narrative. Unconscious means unaware, and it's stored in the lower region of the brain. That's where PTSD is stored. But what that did to me and for me was caused a narrative about God, that God was my enemy, and that God was punishing, that I wasn't worthy of God's love. Now, I'm going to quote out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on 568, and the reason I'm doing this is because when I was 17 years old, I checked myself into a treatment facility. Well, I went to the hospital and I asked to be put in treatment because I wanted to stop. I'd been using for 6 years, and I was mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally bankrupt at the age of 17, and I wanted out of that so badly. And I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the first step said we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. And I'm like, wow, my life is unmanageable. And clearly I can't not drink, and I can't control how much I drink. So that first step, it sunk in. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm like, oh, there's a solution here. And the second step says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that's where I checked out. I'm like, oh, this is some kind of cult. And the third step, the word God was mentioned. And we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Well, when I saw that third step, I was like, well, this can't work for me because I don't believe in God. And even if there is a God, I don't want anything to do with a God that, just like Bill W.'s story in this book, he talks about war and just disgusting things that have happened through history, that how could there be a God? Well, I have a whole different narrative today about that. And I love this little statement. It's in the back of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on 568 in Spiritual Experience. And it says, there is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is a proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. And I remember the first time I heard that, I went, what the heck does that mean? Well, most of the people that are going to watch this are going to know exactly what it means, but I didn't. So for those that come across this video and hear contempt prior to investigation and go, well, geez, what does that mean? I'm going to tell you what it meant for me or what I understand it to mean. Now, I'm a 5-year-old child. I'm sitting at the table and a new food is introduced to me. And I say, I don't like it. Well, have you ever tried it? No, but I don't like it. Well, how do you know you haven't tried it? I just don't like it. That's contempt prior to investigation. So then I tried the food and, oh, I liked it. Well, clearly, I made a decision about something without really investigating it or trying it. And so what happened for me back in September of 1994, I tried something I had never tried before. I was beaten so badly that I was willing to go to any lengths to not be feeling that way anymore, to not be bonded so strong, to not be able to not drink, to not be able to not use drugs, and that to have that to be the obsession in my mind that controlled everything about my life. So when I was beaten badly enough like that, like I woke up one morning, and this is how it happened for me. I got out of bed because I had to go to work, and I took a step and I collapsed. And I started weeping. And then I started crying harder and harder, and now I'm bawling. And I just looked up at the ceiling, and I started to talk to the ceiling as if the ceiling were God. And because I didn't necessarily believe in God at that point, but I had to try something I had never tried before. I had been beaten to a state of reasonableness because I had exhausted all possible avenues. I looked for every loophole I could to use and drink and continue doing what I was doing, and it was not working. So pain was the ultimate motivator for me to try something I had never tried before, and that was, I'm bawling and I'm looking at the ceiling and I'm like, God, I just don't understand. I'm talented, I'm skilled, I'm gifted, I'm intelligent, I'm kind, I'm a decent looking man, I'm good at what I do at work. What's wrong with me? Please help me, God. And when I said that, I had no reservation that someday I might want to drink or use drugs again. I really, really just wanted to go away and never wanted to do it again. I never wanted to feel that empty and broken inside ever again. And I had no contingencies. God, I'll get sober if you give me the right career. God, I'll get sober if I can have a car. God, I'll get sober if I have the right girlfriend. God, I'll get sober if. There was no if. There was no for now. And then maybe when I retire, I'll pull out a bottle of whiskey. No, For me, it was, God, please help me. I'll do anything. And in the big book, in how it works, it says, if you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. So now let's just remove the whole alcoholism and drug addiction piece, and let's just look at life in general, because every human being experiences life and challenges. And in any situation in life, if we're completely honest with ourselves, we're powerless. The only thing I have any power over is me, my attitudes, my decisions, and how I respond, if I'm capable of, if I don't react first. And then even if I react, I am capable of going back and making amends. So the only thing I control is me, my attitude, my behavior, my response and or reaction in life. So step one, I am powerless over people, places, things, and situations. And whenever I'm obsessed about something I have no control over, this person said this to me and it broke me, and I'm just sitting and swirling in circles and trying to find a way to retaliate or find a way to, hopefully explain myself. They misunderstood me and explain myself so I'm back in their good graces somehow. That's obsession. And obsession is a form of insanity. And in step two, at the end of step two, it says, could restore us to sanity, meaning remove the obsession. So in step one, I am powerless over people, places, things, and situations. Forget the alcohol and drugs, because not everybody who's watching this has been afflicted with drug addiction or alcoholism or, but you likely have struggled with some out of balance behavior in your life. And what's causing that? For myself, it was all the trauma from my childhood, and it was undetected trauma, so therefore it was untreated trauma. And it still causes trouble for me today at the age of 53. um, however, a heck lot less trouble because I've spent, decades doing shadow work through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and well over a decade working with professional therapists and trauma specialists. So now I understand what my narrative is. I understand, when I'm feeling certain ways and what the trigger might have been, and I know how to move through these things. But the concepts are simple, just not easy. So it's a simple concept. I am powerless over people, places, things, and situations, and my life is unmanageable if I'm obsessing about something that's got me stuck and unable to do the little things in my life that I want to do. And it happens to me on a daily basis. I was sitting here before this video, I'm like, I really have to put this out. I put out 1 and 2, and now I have to prepare video 3 for tomorrow because I can't take my foot off the gas. I need to move forward. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about consistency and how important consistency is in order to succeed. Well, that's a no-brainer, right? Well, how do we combat that if we're struggling to get off the couch? Just like I said in getting started, practice some things like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take a deep breath and move forward, but I have to know what I'm moving forward to. So I did write myself a few notes after watching my first couple of videos over again, because there's some things I want to make sure I touch on, like the disclaimer that I'm not any of the above. If you're experiencing like physical ailments, please go see a doctor. If you're experiencing extreme depression, please go see a therapist. If you're considering suicide, please go see a therapist. If there are legal things around you, please talk to a lawyer. In my first video, I said, not only did I survive. Of course, it's kind of a no-brainer again, but for whatever reason, I think I need to go back and watch those things and correct my wrongs in the past. I was starting to tell a story about my therapist in relationships. Well, my therapist had said that, all good relationships are held together with duct tape, meaning that, we damage each other, maybe even of course unintentionally. If we love each other, we damage each other, and we go back and we repair that over and over again. So it's like this big ball of duct tape holding the relationship together. And I thought that was kind of a neat analogy. I really liked that. And I didn't get to finish telling that story because I don't follow prompts and I don't have anything scripted that I'm following here. I'm going right off the top of my head based off of a topic and what I believe to be true for myself. So there's those couple things. I covered the paradoxes again. I have to give it away to keep it, and that giving it away to keep it, doing this right here, right now, is taking action in my life. So, manifestation is going to be a topic down the road because I've worked double, triple, quadruple time in my life to gain what I felt like I needed in life and wasn't able to manifest financially what I needed. But I've manifested many other things in my life. And what I found to be true for myself is that I decide I want something. I decide, we write it down. What is it that I want? Why am I doing this? What is this about? What are the steps I need to take to get there? And then I actually have to put in motion the work, the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 12, step, I don't care if there's 100 steps to get there, but we have to take the first step, the second step, third step, and eventually if I get started, if I stay consistent, and even if I fall down, I get back up and just keep moving, that I will reach these short-term goals, mid-term goal, long-term goal, and eventually I will manifest what I want. But we have to have realistic goals and a realistic path to get there. And maybe my goal was realistic, but I didn't quite have a realistic path to get there because I didn't have the financial wherewithal to really move through all the storms financially to make it to where my business was giving back to me what I needed financially to keep it going. So, start where you are, of course. Getting started, we have to start where we are, and every day is a new day. So every day we have to start again somewhere. And this morning I posted that second video, and I played my guitar and for about an hour and a half, and I did a little meditating. I didn't go outside today. It's nice out, but not real nice yet. I wanted to go back out to the quarries where I recorded my second video with Ling Ling and, show what it really looks like out there. It's a spot that I had been going to since I was a 9-year-old child, and it's one of my happy places. But I'll do that in a video down the road. I'll say that I started looking for a pathway, a different career path back in 2009 when I was driving truck over the road. And I really, really, really hated it. I did not like driving truck over the road after the first 2 years at all. It really was literally like being in prison on wheels. I've seen this road before. I've seen that tree before. I've seen that rock before. I saw that cow, that church, that barn, that person standing on the corner last week in the exact same spot. So I've been in every state in the lower 48 of the United States in a semi truck. And from Minnesota south and east, I've been in the majority of those states literally hundreds of times over again. I can navigate myself across this country without even opening an atlas anymore. So, I really didn't want to record this video because I'm feeling exhausted already. I didn't do a lot, but it was enough to really, wow, I just want to lay on this couch, but I'm not tired. I want to get up and go out and do something, but I know I need to do this for myself. I need to do it maybe for other people too, because other people maybe have experienced too much in life. Excuse me, I'm going to take periodic drinks of my water because my mouth gets dry, not because I'm stoned. I'm completely clean and sober. But I'm stressed out. And I'm just being transparent and honest. 100% unfiltered, unedited, as real as it gets. I'm not here to put on my best face. That's why in my first video, I recorded it in my pajamas with my pillow on the couch and my blankets on the couch. Because I don't want to show you just the best version of me. I want to show you the most broken version of Simon Eklund. Simon says, I want you to see the most broken version. I want you to see my life transformation in real time. At some point, I'll go back through my life and I'll maybe put out some videos and pictures, or you can go to my Facebook and look at my my reels that I've put out in music. You can look at my pictures and some of the things that I've, did in my life that show. I don't want to tell you. I want to show you. I'm going to have to tell you because I'm using my voice to talk about my life. But I can tell you anything about me to try to convince you about who I am. But really, you can look at my life through Facebook. You can see everything about. I have no rock unturned. I have nothing to hide. I really, literally, there's a couple of people in my life that I've told everything in my life to. Like, I have literally no dirt, no skeleton in my closet anywhere. Anybody can come into my life and try to turn it upside down, and I'm going to laugh at them because I live and breathe the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, which are Christian principles to begin with. And even though I don't go to church and I don't read the Bible and I don't practice any kind of religious rituals, I am, as every human being is, a creation of God. And my experience was that my unconscious narrative and even my conscious narrative, right up until the day I said, God help me, was that God was non-existent, or God just didn't care about me, that I wasn't a good enough person to be in God's good graces. Well, I found that to be an absolute lie. I've got videos where, like, I said a little prayer and thank you, God, before I started my video, to record a song. And right when I got done thanking God and the universe and the musical inspirations that have passed on and gone, boom, and there was a flash of lightning. Like, to me, that was, you're welcome. There's another video where I was giving a little speech before my song, and in my pause, you hear an eagle cry in the background. And some people say, it's just all weird coincidences. Well, I've come to believe there are no just weird coincidences. Signs and synchronicities have led me to read scripture in the Bible, which I went, wow. Like, wow. A 3-letter synchronicity that I started seeing over and over. I'm like, why do I keep seeing this? And it was LKV. And somebody had just given me a Bible not too long before that, in LKV. And I wouldn't have thought anything of it, but I keep seeing this LKV everywhere. So I'm starting to think like LK, like Luke V. I don't know a Luke with a last name that starts with V. Oh wait, maybe V is a Roman numeral. Luke 5. I opened the Bible to Luke 5, and boy, let me tell you, it's the story of Simon Peter. Well, my name is Simon, and that's before his name was Peter. Simon and his 2 teams were out toiling and laboring all night long in these fishing boats, and they didn't get any fish, and they came back to shore, and there was Jesus teaching the people. And he got on the boats to teach the people on the boats. He said, put your boats out. And they would go out, and then as he's teaching, he says, put your boats out further and drop the nets. And Simon says to Jesus, we toiled and labored all night and got nothing. But since you say, we will. And they did, and they caught so much fish they almost sunk the boats. And Simon goes to Jesus afterwards, and he says, go away from me, I'm not worthy of you. And what I got out of this, so first I was really furious that I was guided to something that talked about toil and labor for a night with 2 teams. I'm one man. I'm 23 years older than that guy was at the time of that story, because I think he was 30 or maybe even under the age of 30 years old. And he had 2 teams that he toiled and labored with. I'm one man who's been toiling and laboring since I was 22 years old. And I felt like God was telling me to do something again that I had already done multiple times over and didn't have success financially. And I'm like angry with God. But then wait a second. I was a non-believer. And the whole moral of that story was that Simon didn't believe in Jesus, and Jesus showed him the truth. And I'm much like that today too. It's not that I'm a born again Christian. It's that I believe that the man Jesus lived, and I believe he was sent by God, and he was sent here for a reason, to give a message and to teach us how to be in this world. And boy, let me tell you, it's been ignored to an extreme. And I don't care, even the Muslims, they had Allah. It's the same thing. These cycles repeat. There have been prophets through time, and there are prophets on this planet now, and the message is the same. And these ego-driven, they're not leaders, they're just straight up tyrants in this country and in every other country on this planet that's at war. They're tyrants, they're irresponsible, and they should be removed. Every one of them. Yes, this country too. I'm getting a little irritated, and I'm going to say why. So, back in 2013, forget it. 25 years of my life, I worked, and I paid my taxes. And I've never been lazy. I've worked hard. I owned and operated semi-trucks during a time when digital tracking and GPS didn't exist. So, it was not uncommon for a 20-hour day every day. And it was not uncommon sometimes for days to blend into 2 days, into 3 days without sleeping at all. And I did it all clean and sober. No drugs, no caffeine pills. I drank coffee and smoked cigarettes like a chimney, but clean and sober. And that's not legal. But if I wanted a paycheck and I wanted to feed my family and I didn't want to be kicked out of the place that I was working, leased onto, I better take the job and do it when they say it needs to be done. So my point being is that despite everything I experienced in my childhood, there came a day, I had a job. I lost the job because the owner didn't pay his taxes. And from that point, I went to a temp agency. This is way back 30 years ago now, because I was about a little over a year sober. So it was 30 years ago. I went to work at the bicycle shop one day, and the doors were closed, and there was a note from the IRS, and I no longer have a job, and I'm a year sober, and I got rent to pay. And boy, in the past, that would have been the greatest excuse. Let's go get drunk. Poor me. Down the hatch it goes. What do I do in my life? Poor me. I lost my job. I can't do anything. No. I went to a temp agency. I didn't have a car. The job was 45 miles from here, but they had a bus. It picked me up, it took me, it brought me home. It was in a factory. I worked there for 3 weeks. It was the worst experience of my life. But on my way home one morning, because I was working the overnight shift, which was terrible too, but one morning I was on my way home sitting in the bus, and I'm looking out the window, and the sun's coming up, and it was just gorgeous over the field and the trees and the colors in the sky. And I had this overwhelming sense of gratitude. And then I'm like, wow, God, thank you for doing for me what I could not do for myself. Because there's no way, excuse me. No way that I lost my job and I was able to go to a temp agency and I do this job that I hate every day, but I am so grateful that I am able to pay my rent and I'm able to buy my food and I'm able to have my cigarettes and my coffee. And at that time in my life, that's all I cared about, and I continued to go to AA meetings, and I continued to work with the newcomer, and I continued to work with my sponsor, and I continued to read that big book, and I finished the 12 steps, and there's no completion of that. There's no graduating from Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a program that continues for a lifetime. Those 12 steps are my daily reprieve from insanity, from obsession, from compulsion, not just in drinking and drugs, from out of character behavior in any way, shape, or form, if and only if I choose to honestly look at and evaluate myself, not you or anybody else, me. With people with overabundance of trauma, it's easy to point a finger back at the other people. And there's some people in my life that are going to see this video and they're going to be saying, he's full of shit. He needs, and these are toxic people who really don't want to look at themselves. That this straight out said, we've listened to you preach. No, I've shared my truth. And if they took that as preaching, well, they're not as mature as I once thought them to be. And if they're offended by that, I'm going to say what a lot of others have said to me. Maybe sometimes the truth hurts. Anyway, back to the story. As these are facts, I lost my job. I got a job at the temp agency, which eventually landed me a job in a cabinet shop building custom cabinets. And I liked it. It was fun. And it was just me and another guy in this custom cabinet shop, and I earned a decent wage. But I started to have rashes all over my skin. And I'm like, what's the problem? And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, there's formaldehyde in the wood. You must be having a reaction to the formaldehyde. And so I started networking and talking with people. And a friend of mine says, hey, you want to learn to drive semi-truck? And I'm like, wow, yes, I'm going to learn to drive semi-truck. So here's my point. I'm not a veteran. I've never been in the armed services. I've never served this country overseas, but I served this country in country. And any American citizen who's ever had any job in this country, I don't care what it is, they're serving this country at some level. And when we pay our taxes, we're paying in to that Social Security. We're, paying into the system that someday we're going to get old and retire. Now, I hope that by the time I'm in retirement, I care less about Social Security. I would hope that I'm able to provide for myself and I don't need that system. I never wanted to need the system. When I came back from Chicago to Minnesota 31 years ago, I needed the system, and the system was there. I went to treatment on a Rule 25. So the county paid for the treatment. I went from the treatment center into a halfway house. The county paid for the halfway house. And, I got some food stamps for a while and some medical benefits for a while. But I moved away from that and I became self-sufficient again, okay? So I was able to utilize these resources to become independent again. Now, I learned to drive semi-truck. That became my career. And eventually a car accident took me out of the ability to do any more physical labor because my medical doctor said, Simon, based on these x-rays, I'm telling you now, you need to change your career. Your back and neck will not handle physical labor anymore. Sitting in fixed positions for extended periods of time, bouncing around, it's not going it's not going to do your back any justice. And my experience was I'm hard-headed. 2 months after healing, I thought I could go back to work, and I worked for a week or two, and I had to quit. He was right. So again, rather than poor me, I've got a family, I've got a child, I've got a house, I've got a wife, we've got bills to pay. And now this car accident took me out of the seat. And I needed to find something new. And I talked about that in my second video, being trained as a franchise broker. Okay, well, that's a home-based business and it costs, a couple $1,000s a month just to start and run that business. And it took from the time I got in the car accident to the time I got my first placement fee as a franchise broker was 2 years, okay? 2 years. And in that 2 years, debt is piling up. I did get some help financially from a family member, a family member who sent me money that belonged to me because it was money that he had since my dad died when I was 11 years old. So my grandfather, he sent me money to help me start this business and pay some of our bills, but it was not nearly enough. But regardless of that, I continued. It was 2 years, and my wages back when the accident happened in 2013 were $48,000 a year. So I lost $96,000 in wages. To be trained as a franchise broker at that time in 2013-14 was $30,000 for the education. If you went with any of the franchise opportunities or business opportunities, about $30,000 just to get trained, plus your operational expenses. I had to fight my own insurance company for 3 years. Now, the insurance company, because the woman that hit me, and it was 100% her fault, did not have insurance. Now, I'm not just making excuses. I'm talking about these are the facts, and I didn't just lay down and go, poor me. I moved forward. I had to fight my own insurance company for 3 years. They paid my medical bills. Great, awesome. At the end of 3 years, they gave me a check for $6,800 for my pain and suffering on a permanent injury that cost me, to change my career, which means I had to be re-educated. And during education period, you typically are not earning money. And I had an injured neck and back. So I found something to be retrained in, but let's just look at the money. $96,000 in lost wages and a $30,000 re-education. I got $6,800 from my insurance company and was told I should take it or I'm going to have to pay back all of my medical expenses. So I took it. And I said, well, I guess that's life. One more time, the financial giants of the world just keep screwing the little guy over. And I'm going to get rude about this here because I'm going to get even more rude with the United States government in this one. I'm not attacking. I'm telling my facts. It's a fact that I worked for 25 years and paid my taxes. And even when I was in a life-changing car accident, I didn't go, poor me, and go file for Social Security and say, I can't work anymore. No. I did what my doctor suggested. Find a new career. And I found a new career. And I got trained. And, I started a great business, Franchise Voyager, transformed it into Career Transition Headquarters, was the co-founder of Fram Brokers Consortium, helped many people either decide to stay in their job or to become a franchise owner. And to my knowledge, all but maybe one of those people are still successful today, or they have exited their franchise because they met their exit strategy, which means I wasn't selling anything. I was helping people get the information they needed so they can make an educated decision about their future. Now, I started seeing a therapist in 2011 when I sold my last semi-truck and got a local job because I had a child that was coming into the world, and I had had a family previous, and I raised 2 boys and was married, driving truck over the road, and I didn't want to do that again. I wasn't with the woman that I was having a child with, but I still did not want to live on the road all week, and be exhausted when the weekend came that I got to spend with my daughter. So I sold my truck, I got a local job, being responsible, being a part of life, being productive. I started seeing a therapist because all the work I had done in AA, all the shadow work, after all the years, I was still experiencing things that I didn't believe I should be experiencing, like, wow, my conscious logic says everything's awesome and I have everything to be happy about and everything to be excited about, especially during celebrations. And whenever I'm with my friends and family and celebrating, I want to feel like I crawl in a hole and die. So I just put this fake smile on my face. Not that it was fake, like I was acting. It's that I didn't want anybody to know that I was feeling a certain way, because that's just absurd of me to feel that way. So I wanted to know. So I started seeing a therapist. Well, fast forward 6 or 7 years, consistently, weekly, meeting with this therapist, the same therapist, one day looked at me and said, "Oh my God, Simon, you've been alone a really long time. I'm so sorry I didn't see this sooner. You have severe PTSD. You experienced way too much in your childhood, and it didn't stop there. And you just keep walking through it." He said, "You are exhausted. I would invite you to meet with a trauma specialist, and I think it's a good idea you apply for Social Security." And I'm like, I looked at him, I said, "It's absurd. I'm not alone." But that's what I've felt my whole life. He gave that feeling a name, and it changed everything for me in that moment, because some real healing started to happen. I saw a trauma specialist. I learned about PTSD. I learned about complex PTSD. I used to ask my doctor all the time, "Am I a narcissist?" Man, I've had some real narcissistic behavior. Well, that's pretty common for any human being, apparently. And I can look at myself and say, this was very narcissistic of me. He said, no narcissist would ever say that. They're going to point the finger back at you every single time. Every time you try to come forward and try to, find a common ground and a solution. And no, they won't. They will always blame shift. They will always gaslight. And it happened to me twice today. I was gaslit, and it broke me. And that's okay. It didn't really break me, because here I am making this video. But the point is, a therapist I had been seeing for 6 or 7 years consistently, like no real breaks. Maybe there was a couple weeks or a month where I didn't see that therapist a couple times over the 6-year period. And then I started seeing a trauma specialist, and I applied for Social Security. And what do you think happened? Well, everybody gets denied the first time. Don't you know that, Simon? Nobody gets Social Security the first time. You mean I can have a therapist I didn't just go in there and walk in there and I can't work anymore. Get me Social Security. This country needs a complete overhaul, man. That's not what this is all supposed to be about. But I have to address my realities and the things that I've gone through to show a person that, life is brutal. Life is brutal. And this country's system was built by narcissists. It's built to be emotionless and care not about its people, but we the people for the people, right? No. This country is under dictatorship by irresponsible, greedy people. So, and I'm not the first one to say this, and I'm going to say this as well. I have the right to free speech. So come knock on my door and put me in prison, and the rest of the people will see that you can't speak your mind in this country. I don't think that'll happen. I hope I don't get shut down for this. I'm telling my truth. My truth was I denied Social Security once. So I appealed it. And apparently the appeal never, so I had to apply. I used a local place, legal aid services or something. And this Somalian woman, and I'm not saying anything bad about Somalians being here, but she could barely speak English. She was the one that helped me fill out this application that got denied. I asked that legal service to appeal it, and a year later I found out it was never appealed, so I had to reapply United States government to have it denied. I hired a lawyer. It was denied. I was denied 4 times. This all happened during COVID. I never got one stimulus check. I paid my taxes working in this country, serving this country, driving a semi truck, medical supplies, food, building materials, disaster relief. I even delivered to NASA. But I'm not worthy of the benefits that I paid into for 25 years. So, poor me? No. I mean, I did fall from grace. I ended up using chemicals for a few years. And fortunately, drug addiction and alcoholism are not the same. Fortunately, for myself, I'm not an addict. Fortunately for myself, I have the disease of alcoholism, and I haven't drank for 31 years. And since I haven't put alcohol in my body, I haven't lost control completely of anything. I was out of control with my drug use for a while. It was really stupid, absolutely irresponsible and dumb. Well, the narrative was unconsciously, now looking back at it, makes sense. Here I was toiling and laboring, and all the work that I was doing wasn't bringing in enough money to the household for all the bills to get paid. And there was $92,000 of crushing debt. And I literally woke up one day and could not function. And that's when my therapist said, wow, this is severe PTSD, and you should apply for Social Security. And I'm like, I think you're right. And here I am. That was 2019, 7 years later, without any financial assistance from the government. I got 4 years on a waiting list to finally get the apartment I'm in, which I'm so grateful for. Amazing view, great location. 4 years on a waiting list. So I was homeless for a while, couch surfing for a while. I did have some assistance from my family, and then the assistance was taken away, and I still have some assistance from my family, and it's slowly being taken away. And every time something goes away, as I'm unable to get that footing back under me and go back into the workforce and have a regular paycheck, it spikes the anxiety and the stress, and whoa, fight, flight, freeze. That's severe. Well, here I am. I'm sitting. I've got a little bucky in my video today, but I have to tell it like it is. I gave up applying for Social Security, but I will not give up on the American citizens who have been denied what they paid into. Nor will I give up on those people, or myself, or my children, because my children are important to me. And you know, there's a lot of people out there that look at me as a deadbeat because I couldn't just pull up my big boy pants and bully myself into going and getting a regular job again after I had toiled and labored for 25 years, paying my taxes, and experienced something that I couldn't explain. And my doctor said, this is not your fault. You have severe PTSD. Then my trauma specialist said, well, it's complex PTSD. And I'm like, oh, and I watched videos about it, and I'm like, yes, I experienced long-term exposure to abuse and neglect and multitudes of severe traumas throughout my life. These aren't excuses to stay stuck and stay small and not do anything and just want to get Social Security and sit on my ass and do nothing the rest of my life. I needed some help and some resources to move forward. And slowly I just continue to shut down, and I keep trying to climb out of this hole, and I get hit again, and I just want to shut down and just close my eyes and never wake up again. And no, I can't. Because for whatever reason, the creator of everything And I don't care what other people believe. I'm not here to convince you that God exists. I've been shown in so many ways. And over time, just like I said, a 3-letter synchronicity read me to read Luke 5 in the Bible. I've never read it before in my life. As a matter of fact, I didn't even want to read out of the Bible that the person gave to me, because whenever I opened it up and I read something, I became so triggered by it. I'm like, this is disgusting. I can't believe this doctrine exists. Because it basically tells anybody that's been attacked or wronged in any way, shape, or form, pray for them and forget about it. And, if you suffer through your life, be grateful for your suffering, because that means God loves you and you'll make it into the promised land. I don't know if that stuff's in the Bible. I haven't read it. I'm not a clergyman. I don't know, but I know that some of the stuff I've read in the Bible, and after I become not triggered anymore and I look at the message behind this dumbass story they use to an extreme, I go, oh yeah, that does make sense. It is the truth. Well, that's why I don't like religion, because a lot of toxic stuff comes out of these people who look down their nose from above at people because they've got long hair and they're a man, or tattoos, or, they don't make enough money. One hour and 1 minute. So, I was denied Social Security 4 times. Here I am. I don't know how this is going to monetize yet. I have zero clue at this point how to monetize my life. I have a small nest egg because my grandfather left me his military benefit and left me in his will, but my greedy aunts somehow legally stole everything except for that little military benefit, because my grandfather was a retired lieutenant colonel in the armed forces and a CIA agent, all that, whatever. I didn't even find out he passed away from my family. This is my dad's dad. My dad died 42 years ago. My grandfather was stuck in a nursing home 3 years, and my aunt said, see you later. You'll hear from our new power of attorney after your grandfather passes away. I haven't heard from a new power of attorney. He passed away July 25th of 25. It's now March 30th of 26. I heard from the Department of Veteran Affairs that my grandfather passed away, my dad's dad. My grandfather and I always stayed in contact. My aunts took away my right to have a relationship with my grandfather in his final years. They accused me of taking advantage of him when he sent me money to start my business after a car accident. And then when I used chemicals again, well, of course, that was all the more you're no good. You're a criminal. You were a member of some, organization that they probably looked at as a criminal organization at one time that I'm no longer a member of. But I get their point on that, but that's certainly no reason to just shun your family, your blood, and steal an inheritance. So, recapping, I didn't mean for this video to get into kind of a slander of the United States government and the system here, but, I can't help it. I'm going to be 100% unfiltered, unedited, as real as it gets. And I will provide solutions. Hopefully, eventually, I can help people maybe find some solutions or a way to move forward with the United States government and getting some benefits or some help to put yourself back into being a responsible, productive member of society again, so you don't need to stay on those benefits. We don't have any real programs, and if we do, the local here in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Stearns County, what do you call it? My social workers all looked at me like a deer in the headlights, like they didn't know how to help me. I even said, Hey, I'll go back to school. I'd like to go to school for forensic psychology. I think I'd be great at this. But I need my rent paid. I need my food paid. I need transportation. I need medical paid. I need my teeth fixed that are falling out of my face that Medicaid won't pay for. And there's just two of them, but that's enough. That makes a person sick. Teeth health relate to physical health. And because my Medicaid won't fix my teeth, I'm suffering. And I paid taxes for 25 years. And I had a therapist that I'd been working with for 7 years say, apply for Social Security. You're exhausted. You've earned it. So, regardless of how hard life can kick you down, make no excuses. I'm not making excuses because here I am. I don't know how to monetize this channel yet. I'll have to watch more videos. I'll have to do it all on my own unless somebody sees this and says, Simon, I want to help you. And I just might accept help. If it's not as long as you can come up with $10,000, why don't you go ask your rich uncle or something like that? Because I'm coming to the table with nothing but willingness, dedication. I'm a hard worker. Over the last couple of years, 3 years, over the last 3 years, so my clean date from methamphetamine is February 4th. It's Valentine's Day at 23, so 3 years back on Valentine's Day. Methamphetamine, crack cocaine long before that. I don't use anything today. Those were the important ones. Marijuana, I kind of off and on with it, and then now I'm just off. It's just off. I don't even consider a clean date because I don't consider myself even to be an addict. The fact that I was able to walk away from methamphetamine like this is stupid and I'm not doing it anymore, it's a miracle. And it tells me that maybe my experience is different than what I used to read in the Big Book of Narcotics Anonymous, but my experience is that what I read in the Big Book of AA is true. My body does not metabolize alcohol properly, therefore there is never, ever, ever safely using alcohol. Just like there's never, ever safely using methamphetamine. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's a whole different physical, biological part of alcoholism, different from drug substance use disorder, let's say, okay? Trauma bond. I'm going to have to wrap this up. Episode 1, getting started. Episode 2, finding a career path. Episode 3, a recap and telling you a little bit about my story and the challenges and continuing no matter what. Don't give up. If you're out there struggling, if you've been through it, if your family excommunicated you, there's going to be people that hear my story and say, oh yeah, I got one for you. I'm not looking for anybody to one-up me. I'm not here to one-up anybody. I'm telling my story the way it is, as real as it gets. Simon says, peace. Peace, really. Hang loose. Enjoy life. Take a deep breath. If you've been through trauma, it's not your fault. If you're struggling in life, I hope and pray that the people on the other end of this video find some resources or find a community somewhere. See you next time.